always has, operating under the same, kinds of conditions until the other sisters show up. They had earned the nickname the Black Sisters because they all dressed in black. Caroline and Mary were widows and in mourning, which supposedly explained their clothing choice.
Well, yeah, you mourned for quite a while back then.
You did, and of course there's like the mourning veils and the big black dresses. This is kind of like end of the Victorian era.
I could see you dressing like that.
I kind of do.
Just regularly, even though I'm alive.
I know. During their time running the school, many suspicious activities occurred. At one point, Mary's son, John, who was a 28-year-old teacher, was married living in Tennessee, and he was summoned to come teach at the school. Now, his wife objected to the move. She didn't really want to go to Virginia. She didn't want to go be around the family, the aunts, the mother-in-law. So he eventually decides after, being asked several times, I think both aunts on separate occasions had come to visit him and asked him to come. So he finally gave in. They hop a train. Now on the way, he reportedly fell from the train.
What the hell?
Yeah, and he sustained an injury. He claims he just happened to fall, but there was a train worker who said otherwise and thought it was a suicide attempt.
So it
looked more like John had tried to jump from the train.
Okay, so I wonder how fast the train was moving.
Later, John would almost drown as he was pulled from a cistern by another employee at the school.
John's not lucky at all, is he?
No, he would eventually burn to death in his bed.
Damn, John.
His night clothes were doused in kerosene. About a week before his death, a very sizable life insurance policy was taken out by his mother and his aunts. Now, people speculate it was suicide. Others say it was murder.
Well, if those other events had already happened, they weren't even around him on the train there, maybe it was suicide and they knew he was the damn going to kill himself and just, wanted to benefit off of that. Or they could have been trying to kill him.
After John is tragically killed.
Burned alive.
Burning bed of doom.
Jesus, kerosene.
Isn't that a Farrah Fawcett, made-for-TV movie, The Burning Bed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he fucked with the wrong girl on that one.
She was like an abused woman, right?
Yes.
Who took revenge on her abusive husband and, set him on fire.
I'm pretty sure he woke up tied to the bed.
Tied him up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember watching that movie as a child,
mm-hmm.
which probably was inappropriate.
Maybe.
But also my mother being like, hell yeah.
Get him, girl.
You go, Farrah Fawcett.
Well, it's a whole category now. Revenge movies. It's always
been around for a while in the horror genre.
Yeah.
A lot of the female heroines come in and kick ass.
Yeah, the only thing that's ever bothered me about that is the woman hero in the end always has to be violated and abused before she gets to be the hero. You know what I mean?
Spit on your grave.
Yeah, they have to
Last
be
House on the Left.
Horribly attacked and raped and brutalized. They can't just be, what if the men were portrayed like that in movies? Yeah.
Well, they kind of were. If you look at Deliverance.
Well, that's true.
That's one of those films that kind of flipped the script a little bit.
Well, that's why people talk about it to this day, because people were like, oh my God.
I know.
I thought I was going to watch a woman get raped. They're raping men out here.
Hide your wife, hide your kids.
They're raping everybody out here.
John had a brother. His name was Fletcher Sneed, and he was brought to the school after John's death for a teaching position.
I wouldn't want to go there and teach.
You wouldn't?
No, I don't think so.
He had a cousin, and her name was Oceana Martin, which would have been his Aunt Caroline's daughter. It was Fletcher's cousin. It was a surprise to people in town when Fletcher and Oshie, as she was called, decided to get married.
Oh, okay, kissing cousins?
Yeah. Well, they didn't really show a lot of affection for each other. So when it was announced that they had gotten married, people in the town were surprised by this. Oshie was also quite beautiful, and a lot of people believe she was the illegitimate daughter of Virginia Wardlow.
Oh, okay. A lot of gossip going on there.
Very much like her aunt, not so much like her mother. And Virginia was younger. A lot of people speculated perhaps she had birthed Oceana out of wedlock, and maybe the older sister had taken the girl in to raise.
Right, because that's scandalous back then.
Oceana was born September 1885 in New York City to Caroline and Colonel Robert Maxwell Martin, an American Civil War colonel for the Confederacy. Allegedly, the family was opposed to this marriage between Oshie and Fletcher, so they had to have a secret ceremony in 1906.
I love their names back then. They're so proper.
No, I don't know if the opposition to this marriage was because they were cousins or if there was some other reason why.
It sounds like there could be a plethora of reasons.
During this time, the sisters are trying to manage the school. They rack up a ton of debt, owing tradespeople who had been working on the school on different projects. They had several lawsuits brought against them. They made a lot of shady business deals. The reputations that they had in town quickly began eroding, and people just didn't trust them at all. Rumors began to swirl around about the women. A story circulated about an unwed girl at the school who had a baby. It disappeared without a trace.
Ooh.
A driver told stories of how the sisters paid him to drive them around to the cemetery at odd hours, including at night.
Uh-oh.
He claimed to have witnessed the women whispering incantations and making gestures over certain graves.
Oh, that got people stirred up.
Students at the school say they would awake, now this is super creepy, in the middle of the night to find the women standing by their beds.
No.
And then the women would just retreat back into the darkness and leave the room without saying anything.
I would be out the next day.
Yeah, attendance at the school began to drop, and the classrooms were chaotic. Rules and order fell by the wayside. Unpredictable behavior by the sisters started to, take place. For example, they would sometimes put 3 padlocks on the doors and not let any of the students leave the building.
That would make me uncomfortable.
There would be no one in the classroom. The sisters would just be walking up and down the halls,
so that
freaking kids out.
They're not even properly staffed, it doesn't sound like at this point. They're in debt. Their reputation, which was a big deal then, your word was your bond. People lived by that. So they can't get it properly, no proper maintenance. It's falling apart. It's totally going to pieces.
And you've got to consider, if this is a boarding school, parents are likely paying a pretty penny for their children to attend this school.
Yeah, and that's also full service. You got to have room, board, food, activities. You got to take care of everything when someone stays at the school.
Right. So when the enrollment starts to drop,
right,
then that means that money's not coming in.
The revenue's dropping off. Your credit's shit now. You can't get anything on credit. So I could imagine those kids started wanting to go home. And there you go.
By 1908, the sisters had pretty much abandoned the school, packed up, and moved. From what I've read, they traveled around, went to New York City, Canada briefly, and then settled in Orange, New Jersey. And in 1908, the police were called to this really shabby house. Inside, Oshie Sneed was discovered nude in a bathtub. It was filled halfway up with water. Her head was sort of tilted under the faucet. A letter was found pinned to a garment, which was like a nightgown, read like a suicide note, and it was sort of found disheveled as if somebody had sort of tossed it halfway into the tub.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that sounds totally how suicide works.
Virginia Wardlow was questioned by police and gave some pretty unsatisfactory answers.
I could imagine.
To their questions.
Yeah.
They held her. They went in to investigate the home. Once they realized something was up, they found this house completely dirty, almost like hoarders lived there. No heat, no hot water inside. There was no food in the house, but they did find just piles, and this is why I say it was almost like a hoarder, just piles and piles of eggshells and milk cans.
Oh, God.
Which, can you imagine the smell's got to be kind of funky,
from the
right?
milk and the eggs? Oh, no.
This is the really odd part as well. Now, I mentioned that they were briefly in Canada, New York, settled in New Jersey. Well, at some point, Fletcher had like up and left and went to Canada, he changed his name and was living in Canada with this alias.
Okay, he's getting the hell away from him, huh?
The whole time, Caroline is telling her daughter Oshie that Fletcher is dead. But in fact, he's alive and well and actually in touch with his mother, the aunts. They know where he is, what he's doing, that he's using this fake name. But the whole time they're telling Oshie, oh, he died.
That's weird.
Oshie, right before Fletcher had left, well, a little bit before that, she had had a baby, a little girl that had died just several days after being born. When Fletcher leaves and abandons her again is around the time she finds out she's pregnant with a second child. Oshie's pregnancy was not going very well. A doctor visited her because she just, was not thriving. And at the time, Oshie told this doctor that she was being starved and begged for help.
Wow. Maybe she did kill herself. Sounds like horrible circumstances.
The doctor visited the woman several times and noted that the sisters were not following his instructions for care. Like everything he would tell them, this is what you need to do to take care of Oshie, wasn't happening.
Right.
He would come back. She would be in worse condition, very gaunt, pale, weak. But he eventually stopped visiting the woman because he wasn't being paid.
Yeah,
every time he would show up for this home visit, they would promise him, oh, we'll get you next time, we'll pay you next time. And they never paid him. So after about 4 or 5 visits, the guy's like, I'm not coming back.
Yeah, he's like, she needs food and water every day.
Yeah, he's like, ass, gas, or grass. Ain't nobody getting medical care for free.
And we need to keep her clean. And you need to do something with that stank-ass pile of eggshells over there. I mean, I don't know what you're doing with that. Yeah, so, of course he's going to stop coming.
Her son David was born and in incredibly poor health. So right off the bat, this baby is hospitalized and eventually placed in an orphanage by the sisters. He died 9 months later. The sisters had regularly been giving Oshie morphine.
And that's wild back then that you don't have proper food and, it sounds like they're kind of out of money and stuff, but you can still easily get morphine. Well,
it sounds like they are intentionally starving this woman.
Yeah.
And loading her up with morphine.
Why didn't she just walk away? I mean, shit, just hit the front door.
Well, at this point, it sounds like she's too damn weak.
Well, yeah, but catch your sisters hanging by their feet when they're asleep, up in their dark room, and get the hell out of there.
Who knows why people do the things they do.
Yeah.
Perhaps she almost had like Stockholm syndrome.
Well, it could have been almost, I was going to say,
she's probably been manipulated by her mother and these crazy aunts for so long.
Well, maybe it was like an abusive relationship, just no different than if it was with a spouse, I bet you're right.
After Oshie's death, they returned to the house for further investigation. Initially they had found a few things, thought it was odd, but then once they start to realize she's had morphine in her system, this
looks like
suicide is not really adding up. Exactly. They go back, they find a clump of blonde hair in the house, as if it belongs to someone.
Okay.
They find a femur bone, human bone, and they find an infant's eye socket.
What? Just the eye socket?
Yeah. Like just a piece of
a skull?
Facial bone that was like the eye socket.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So I bet these people in this town are like, what in the hell?
A will dated August 1908 claimed that Oshie had left everything to her mother, Caroline Martin, which was a total of about $32,000 in life insurance money.
Ah, nice. I love how these people can keep up the life insurance premiums.
Right? Now, eventually the sisters are brought to trial in 1911 on charges of manslaughter. Fletcher Sneed was discovered in Canada living under the name John Lucas, working at a lumber camp.
I wonder how they sniffed that out.
He would not be tied to the murder and would never be charged to Oshie's death.
I think he made a good call by staying in Canada.
I mean, maybe that's why. Maybe he knew that they were all crazy and they would eventually kill him as well.
They sounded like they were crazy.
Caroline Martin was sentenced to jail, but her behavior was so strange that they eventually sent her to an asylum where she died pretty soon